Let's make sure. Oh, shoot. Where'd it go? Is it working? Oh, I thought it was on. Stand by. We may not be live. And it says, oh no, it says I am. Okay, cool. So it is Wednesday, February 13th, 2019. We are live. Now we know for sure we're live. I'm just going to quickly share this on a couple of my other pages. And if you'd like to invite any friends and family to join us, feel free to do the same. And while we do that, go ahead and say hello. And what's your favorite part of Wednesday? What's your favorite part? Today is Wednesday, right? Yeah, what's your favorite part of Wednesday? And then we will get started with today's regularly scheduled programming, the number one thing you must do to experience instant self-love, in about a minute and 15 and a half seconds. I just need to quickly share this on a couple of my pages. So as you're logging in, be sure to say hello, where you're logging in from, and what is your favorite part about Wednesday? And then we'll be ready to go in just 1 minute here. I have 3 more quick shares to do, and then we are going to get this party started. Oh, also, while I'm doing this, does anybody have questions about the last 2 self-love trainings, the ones we did on Monday and Tuesday? Have they been helpful? Is there anything that needs to be cleared up? Let me know. I would love to just address any questions. For some of the people who are on here who might be new to it, maybe share one of the key takeaways you have, so that way that they can go and they can confidently walk into it with knowing that there's going to be some value in it. They're gonna learn from it as well. All right, I think we're all shared up here. Yep. Let's see who is online. Hey, Linda. Violet, what's up? Leslie. Hey, Leslie, good to see you on here. Hey, Kitty, good to see you on here. Lisa, what's up, Lisa? Day off. That's awesome. Kathy. Hey, Kathy. Kidian. You say your name. Is it Kidian? How do you say it? Your day off. Favorite part of Wednesday is this Facebook Live. Oh, that is a good job, Violet. Somebody's on top of it today. Hey, Heather. Friday's just a day and a wake up away. Awesome. Good to see you on here. Sandra, what's up, Sandra? New York. Elle, my data's dementia, not a favorite part. Yeah, I feel for you, Elle. My grandmother had that as well, and I would hope that wouldn't be a favorite part. But I encourage you to, in the spite of the horrible diagnosis that is dementia, and my heart goes out to you for how horrific that disease is. I encourage you to acknowledge maybe a favorite part of your day too. Because here's what happens is when we start to get prompted for things like what's the favorite part of your day, or what's the thing you're most looking forward to, and we immediately go to something that is sad or harsh or whatnot, it starts to color and skew our view of how we can see the world. And while your dad may have dementia, which I can definitely appreciate the gravity of that, that's not every little part of your life, right? There could be something as simple as your favorite part of the day could be the fresh breath that you take in. So just some unsolicited feedback with that. I encourage any and all of you who might be prone to sometimes immediately go to the, oh no, is that frozen? Uh-oh. Let me shoot. Oh no, it looks like it's going now. Okay. It looked like it's frozen on the other side. Hey, Juanita, good to see you on here. Kidian, okay, thank you. I appreciate you saying that too. I'm not the best name pronuncier. It's Thursday in the UK. Oh, I love it. How's the future looking for our UK friends? Carrie, no work tonight, relaxation. And you chose to spend it with us. That's awesome. So does anyone have questions about the trainings that we did the last 2 days? Have they been helpful? Is there anything that needs to be cleared up? Any questions at all? Everything making sense? I wonder why there's such a delay on this side. Whatever. There's just a delay on one side. So a couple quick updates. Number one, our little TED Talk has eclipsed over 1,700 views. So we're making the march up to 1 million. If you have seen it and you haven't done so already, can you do me a huge, huge favor? And right after we're done here, put a comment, post a comment on there and give it a thumbs up. A comment and a thumbs up. The more engagement we can get on it, the more it's going to go out organically to other folks, and the more it's going to be able to get out to other people. Hey, Mickey, good to see you on here. I was just actually talking about Key West earlier today. Great to see you on here. It's like you were hearing me talk about it. So yeah, any extra engagement, and if you haven't seen it already, please, 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 when you have 18 minutes or so you can set aside, head over and watch the TED Talk. This has been it's kind of a I don't know, it's a summation of the last however many years of my life and some of the work I've been doing behind the scenes, and it's a message that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to get it in front of 1 million people this year, as I believe it has the potential and it has the ability to impact that many lives. And so for that to happen, I need the help from all of you to do that. So if you haven't left a comment and a thumbs up on the TED Talk, please do that after this. It just takes a quick second. You can just even put something like my biggest takeaway, whatever it is. But the more engagement we get on there, the more it's going to go out externally to other people too. Hey, Jill, good to see you on here. Linda, she's with me today. I turned on my Christmas lights. They're still up and around her. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. So awesome. Violet, are you really being true to yourself and others in relationships if you don't have self-love, or are you faking it? Oh, that's a good question. Violet, can you do me a favor and save that? Actually, Violet, are you going to be on the Q&A on Friday? I think that would be an awesome question to ask for on Friday. Do you mind saving that for Friday? That's a great question. And I just think it's going to fit more with Friday, if you don't mind. It's very insightful and helpful when you're overwhelmed with the voices of doubt and negative feels. Oh, I'm so glad it's helpful, Heather. That's awesome. Thank you. Hey, Angie. Good to see you on here. I was actually talking about, Mikey. So what was happening was I have all these travel sites I signed up to, and there was some cruise deals going on that had Key West in it. I was like, oh, that looks like it could be fun. So it might be in your neck of the woods before too long. What's your hat mean? I have no idea. I got this. I donated some money to a charity a couple years ago, and they gave me one of these. And I realized that I needed something to put on, and I just grabbed it. I was like, oh, this one looks like I haven't worn it for a long time. And I'm trying to diversify, but I don't know if I like it or not. We'll see. I might have to take it off here in a little bit. But anyways, okay. We didn't come here to talk about my hat. We came here to talk about self-love and the number one thing you must do to experience instant self-love. So first of all, if I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you before, my name is Jesse Brisendine. It's an absolute pleasure. And this is going to be part 3 of our 4-part series on self-love. The 4th part of this will conclude tomorrow, and then what we'll have on Friday at noon Pacific time is a general Q&A with me. You can ask questions about the actual self-love course, the self-love course that we're offering as a bonus to this. You can ask questions about any of these self-loves, or you can ask a question that you think I might be able to serve you with an answer for you. It might be in some unrelated topic. It could be about your business, it could be about your relationships, it could be a goal that you're working on, whatever that might be for you. But that's going to be Friday at noon. Violet's already got an awesome question to kick us off for on Friday. And those of you who have been to the Q&As, I think you can all attest that we've had some amazing, amazing conversations and amazing discussions that have evolved from the questions that people are posing during them. So if you can, Friday at noon, please join us for the Q&A. We'll be back here tomorrow, same time, for our conclusion of self-love. And I think that's it. To go and make sure everybody who hasn't is going to go to the TED Talk right after this, right? And give a thumbs up and most importantly, leave a comment, right? It should only take you a minute to do that. And if you haven't watched it, set aside an extra 18 minutes to watch it. I think it's a really powerful message, and it's an important talk to pass on to others. And I really believe in the message. I wouldn't be talking about it as much if I didn't believe in it so strongly. So if this is your first time on here, the way I usually run these is I will teach for probably next several minutes. You can leave comments, you can ask questions. I encourage you to interact throughout. You might have some insights, ahas that pop up. If somebody says something or contributes something that you can relate to, or they're being open and vulnerable, please acknowledge them for that. I want to really make this a safe and supportive community, and one that we can all come to with the intention of growing together. So just like Elle offered up the fact about her father's dementia, I saw several of you commenting and sending kind words and well wishes to her. It's beautiful. That's really what this is about. So don't be shy about giving feedback to others. Also, if anytime you have friends and family who you think might find value in this, feel free to hit the share button on there, or you can just tag their name in the post, and then they should be able to get on here somehow, or I don't know how the inner workings will work, but we'll help them find the way. With that being said, the number one thing you must do to experience instant self-love. So we've spent the last few days talking about self-love. We've talked about the 5 things that can keep us from self-love. We've talked about why self-love is the important kind of love, and that how we are going to project what we reflect, meaning what we see in the mirror is what we're going to project out externally to the world. If we don't like what we see, if we're not feeling a maddening amount of love for that person that we see looking back at us, we're going to go up and we're going to show up in life projecting externally. And what's going to end up happening is, rather than just loving people to love them, we're going to always be loving with conditions. Conditions being that I'm going to show you love, I'm going to give you love on the condition that you're going to reciprocate it or do something or make me feel okay, because I'm not feeling okay with myself. I'm not loving myself enough to be just good with who I am, independent of the adulation and the feedback from others. And what we're really going to focus on today now is how can we experience instant self-love? What is it that keeps us from it? What is it that we must do to start experiencing instant self-love? And you all ready for it? I wish we could do a drum roll, like a da-da-da-da-da-da. I feel like this is one of those drum roll moments, especially if I keep building up and saying the number one thing you need to do. So the number one thing you need to do to experience instant self-love is forgive. The number one thing you must do to experience instant self-love is forgive. Forgive others and forgive yourselves. Now, here's why. A lot of times people think that forgiveness is about... Thank you, Tiffany. She got a drum roll emoji in there. That was perfect. I give you a high five for that. Here's one of the mistakes about forgiveness. The mistake about forgiveness is that when we forgive someone, we're making it okay for whatever they did, whatever they said, however they may have treated us, whatever transgression they may have done. And so sometimes we withhold forgiveness because we feel that we need to punish them. We feel that they don't deserve to be forgiven. We feel that we don't want to absolve them from the wrongs they did, or whatever the case may be. But the real problem with forgiveness is that when we refuse to forgive ourselves and others, what we're doing then is we're kind of like putting our hand up and saying, okay, I want you to chain me. You can voluntarily shackle me to the pain and the problems of the past. So wherever I go now, whatever I do, I'm not just showing up as me, but I'm carrying with me, or dragging with me rather, I'm dragging with me the emotions, the hurt, the pain, the upset, the anger, the frustration of everything that happened in the past. And essentially what that's doing is you're making an agreement with yourself, and that agreement is something to the effect of, I'm not deserving to live a life free from this pain. I'm undeserving to live a life free from this emotional burden. I'm not enough. I don't deserve to be able to show up being fully free from the past and not carry the burden of this pain around. And so when we shackle it to ourselves with a refusal to forgive, we use this analogy a lot, right? If this bottle is our self-love capacity, and if it was filled to the top, that would be maximum self-love, right? But if we fill it with anger, hatred, resentment, revenge, whatever it might come, that when we refuse to forgive, those kinds of emotions that we hold on to, it's like filling this up with a bunch of toxic sludge. And so, yes, we still have some space available to us for self-love, but no matter what we put in there, no matter the self-love we put in there, there's that permanent occupancy that's taken up by that toxic sludge, which means we could dump in the most crystallized and clean Icelandic water, right? Isn't that kind of the fad right now? Straight from the glacier source. And the second it hits that sludge, it's polluted, it's toxic, it's contaminated. And not forgiving is kind of the same thing, right? When you hold around, you carry around those anger, the resentment, the unwillingness to forgive. Anytime you bring a new positive experience into your life, kind of an Icelandic water-esque experience, it immediately comes in contact with that toxic sludge. That toxic sludge is called an unwillingness to forgive. And so what happens is when it comes in contact is that toxic sludge absorbs the good experience. This is why that any of you who may have ever experienced before, and just by a show of hands, you can put a thumbs up emoji in there. You can just say me. How many of you have ever been in a situation where you found yourself unwilling to forgive someone, something, or yourself? You're carrying on with your life, and you have something pleasant that happens. Maybe you enter into a new relationship, a new career, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden, without warning, you find this dark cloud following you around, hanging over your head. That dark cloud is the emotions that come with the past. Perhaps if it's a new relationship, you haven't forgiven the ex that burned you or hurt you. And then all of a sudden now, because there hasn't been a completion with that past relationship, because you're still holding on to it by not forgiving, you find yourself behaving and acting and bringing into your current relationship the stuff that happened in the past. Right? Maybe in your last career, your last job, you had a boss that screwed you over, a coworker who lied and let you down. And so now you're in here, but you've never forgiven that boss. You've never left over that coworker. So everything starts out well, but you're constantly paranoid that the same thing is going to happen again. Because that dark cloud that comes with not forgiving is following you around. And so then the joy that you felt when you first got hired and showing up to this new thing is completely sucked and evaporated away, because Icelandic water has been replaced with toxic sludge. It's been come in contact with toxic sludge. It's contaminated. It's polluted. And that's why we have to forgive if we want to experience instant self-love, because the only way that we can purify this and make space to receive that crystal clean Icelandic water and whatever it is to eliminate the sludge. And the only way we can do that is if we forgive. I see some thumbs up from Tiffany and Mikey and Juanita. I see quite a few. Carrie's got thumbs up. Linda's got a hand up emoji. Yeah, I think, and this is all of us. I think almost every single one of us on here, if we're really honest with yourself, I would put 2 hands up for me. If we're really honest with ourselves, this is a tale that so many of us have gone through in life. Now, but here's the other side of this, right? So when we refuse to forgive, when we're unwilling to forgive, we're voluntarily submitting ourselves to suffering. You might want to write that down. A refusal to give is a voluntary submission to suffering. Actually, if somebody wants to type that up, I might use it in one of my little daily quote things I put up on Instagram. I kind of like that. A refusal to forgive is is volunteering yourself to suffering. Well, I said it not as good that time. However, I said it that first and second time. Somebody could type that up on there, please, and then I can use it later. See, sometimes there's like these little things I hear myself, and it sounds like a little talking bubble. I'm like, oh, I need to write that down. But then I forget to. So I'm asking you, please write that down. So we have to forgive, because if we don't, we're subjecting ourselves to suffering. And here's the truth about suffering. Here's the truth about suffering. Suffering is a selfish endeavor. The reason I say that is because let's think about the concept of suffering. For us to suffer emotionally and psychologically, right, we often will suffer because we have this belief that life was supposed to turn out a certain way. We had this expectation that we thought life was supposed to deliver us. And then it didn't work out that way. So what we do is we hold this anger, this resentment, this unwillingness to forgive towards the future. We almost maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not scoff, it's not scorn, but something like that. Somebody's better with words, maybe you have that. The present. And we don't look forward to the future, because in the future, we just see more of what we feel in the present. See, for us to suffer and for it to continue, we have to hold on to these emotions that come with lack of forgiveness. Because when we don't forgive, then we can always find a way to almost be at fault. And we can always find a way for us to be broken and for us to be hurt and for us to not be whole in the present. For how can I be whole and how can I be not broken if this person did this to me in the past, if this kind of thing happened? Because someone died unexpectedly, because someone did this, somebody screwed me over, someone lied to me, whatever the case may be. And we start to succumb, or we start to subject ourselves to that label. We put ourselves in a very difficult dichotomy to find the level of self-love that we could. Because instead we voluntarily subjected ourselves to suffering in the present. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Questions about any of this so far? Thank you for saying that, Mikey. By refusing to forgive, you're volunteering for more suffering. Thank you. Refusing to give is volunteering more suffering. Thank you, Linda and Mikey, for writing this down. Cool. Thank you for the yeses. Which leads us to, who do we need to forgive? Everyone. Especially that person that you see in the mirror every day. Because when we hold others hostage, meaning that we are unwilling to forgive them, in some ways, we're voluntarily subjecting part of ourselves to be emotionally tied and bonded to them. Now, the psychology of that could be something like, I don't deserve to be free from this. I don't deserve to be happy. I'm incapable of being whole and loving, right? At least I feel something if I'm tied to this. There could be a host of other things in there, and I'm not saying that those are the only reasons, only things it could be. What I am saying is that when we decide not to forgive, especially that person that we see in the mirror, for whatever part that he or she may have played, and the part could have been is just showing up, choosing to be in a relationship with someone, choosing to work the place you did, choosing to get in the car the day you got in the car. And then whatever happened after that is whatever happened after that. But the point is this, is we have to be willing to forgive ourselves. If you want to feel instant self-love, you have got to be willing to release the toxic sludge that you filled your cup up with. Because if you don't, any sort of pure Icelandic water or any other beautiful thing that comes into your life will always and instantly be polluted and will be infected with that toxic sludge. Now, when it comes to forgiving others, there might be some resistance to this. The resistance being is that they don't deserve to be forgiven. You're not ready to forgive them. You're unwilling to forgive them. They are, well, I already said they're not deserving. They're not deserving to be forgiven is usually the biggest one. And that may very well be true. But forgiveness is not about them. Forgiveness is 100% about you. See, that other person or that other thing, whatever it is that you may be holding hostage and by not forgiving, do they suffer? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. They might suffer from you not forgiving them. And if that's your MO for not forgiving them, guess what? You might be accomplishing that to some degree. But remember, the average human being thinks anywhere from 40 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And of those thoughts, there's a small percentage of them that may even drift over to you, right? That may even focus on you. The big point of this is that we're not as significant in the lives of others as we'd like to think we are. We were touching on this the other day about how we might make decisions that keep us from self-love because we're acting in accordance to what we think we should based off of what we think others would want for us rather than honoring our own heart and acting in alignment with our more authentic self. See, we're not nearly as significant in the lives of others that we may think we are. I mean, we could do a quick survey on here right now. We have probably, 50 people or so watching from all around the world. And of those 50 people watching all around the world, how many of you in the last 5 minutes that I've been talking, and be honest, be really, really honest here, just as an example, how many of you in the last 5 minutes have thought about somebody else in this chat? Probably not many of us, right? I maybe have acknowledged some of you, but my actual attention, my actual conscious thought, I haven't. I've been thinking about what I'm going to say here. Most of us haven't. And it's such a great social experiment, an example of that we're not as significant in the minds of others that we may think, yet we'll hold them hostage in our own minds and our own hearts with a refusal to forgive, which we only punish and make ourselves toxic. We won't let go of the sludge, and instead we pollute it. Julie, hey, Julie, are you on here? Happy birthday. Happy couple day later birthday. Does this make sense so far? Right? We're not as significant in the lives of others as we may think, but yet we'll hold them hostage with this refusal to forgive, thinking that we're punishing them. But guess what? When we're thinking that we're punishing them, we have to acknowledge these 3 or 4 fingers that are pointing back at us, because the real people that are getting punished are ourselves. This is why the number one thing you must do to experience instant self-love is to start by forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself and letting things go. Because when you do that, you allow yourself to free up the space inside of your heart, inside of your head, to bring in, whether it's Icelandic crystallized water or whatever the case may be, all the good stuff in life. The good stuff that's not going to be polluted. It's not going to be toxic. It's not going to be already tainted. But it's going to be the stuff that you deserve. And when you can do that and you can allow yourself to receive that, guess what, my friends? That's when you have self-love. And I know that to be true because I don't know if you can tell, but I have goosebumps on my arm right now just from saying that, because I feel it so deeply. And I hope that you all do too. So that's what I have for you all today. Number 1, has this been helpful? And number 2, what questions do you all have about this? What questions? And while you all are typing in questions, a couple things. First of all, I want to acknowledge each and every one of you who have been commenting throughout this, who have been liking and supporting one another. I so appreciate your engagement. I've gotten to see a few people and a few different faces pop up in here that might not normally pop up in here. And I think that's largely because of all of you going and typing and sending messages out and sharing this and whatnot. Again, the more engagement we put on here, the more Facebook is going to share this out and populate it out externally. Number 2, if you have not watched the TED Talk yet, remember to take a few minutes to go and watch the TED Talk afterwards. And If you have watched it, please, please, please do me a huge favor. If you found any value in it whatsoever, give it a thumbs up. But most importantly, put a comment on YouTube. Just a quick little comment. It can be one or two sentences, but something on it, because the more engagement we get on it, the more it's going to be populated and sent out to other people. So what questions do you all have? Carrie, I could cry when I think of forgiving myself. I guess I'm carrying pain. I would 100% agree, Carrie, and I am so grateful for you opening up and sharing that, because just in you being vulnerable enough to share it, that's in some way a start of forgiveness. It's a very positive and powerful step forward to declare that, because a lot of times we may be too worried or too fearful to even admit that, or we might be in such a place where we're holding ourselves so aggressively hostage that we're unwilling to even acknowledge that. So I acknowledge you for saying that, and I see that there's been quite a few people who have already acknowledged you by pushing a little like. And for those of you who made the heartfelt gesture of acknowledging Carrie opening up, I appreciate and love each of you for that action. Hey, Donna, good to see you on here. Does that other person need to know I've forgiven me and her? Great question. Not at all. Not at all. In the self-love course, which I mentioned yesterday, and I'll throw a link up for it actually right now. So just as a reminder, the self-love course, normally I only offer it for $247. I'm offering it this week for $147. And in that course, we do a whole process on forgiveness. And in that process on forgiveness, one of the things that I really emphasize with it is forgiveness is not, they don't even need to know, they don't have to understand. There's an option to doing that if you want to, but not at all. I would say that most of the people who have done the forgiveness exercises that we walk them through in the self-love course, and most of the time when I've done it for myself, I never contact the other person. I never let them know. And part of the reason is because, remember, I'm not, that other person's probably not thinking about me. But here's what I do believe about that. Here's what I do believe. There's an energetic bond that we all can feel, whether we acknowledge it consciously or not. And this might get into that woo-woo stuff we were talking about yesterday. So please forgive me if you don't want to get too woo-woo. But there's an energetic bond that binds us in some way, shape, or form. And whether it's God, the universe, the cosmos, whatever that is. Easy example is, I don't know if any of you, when I said I had goosebumps, if any of you felt me having goosebumps, whether you had goosebumps on yourself or you felt something inside of you, there's some sort of energetic connection that you and I had in the moment right there. And when we're unwilling to forgive, right, there's an energetic bond. We've attached ourselves in some way emotionally to that person because of what they did. So while they don't need to know, you don't necessarily need to call them up or tell them that, hey, I'm forgiving you. What they may feel and experience, which you certainly will, is there's a release in that bond. You're no longer emotionally attached, and you're no longer emotionally obligated to them, meaning that you're no longer emotionally obligated to suffering at expense of them. Does that make sense? Great question. Can't wait to watch it. Yeah, Mikey, when you watch it, please let me know what you think of it. I would love to hear. Can you be perceived as weak if you forgive too easily? Great question, Alexandria. And I would say we can be perceived as anything. What's most important is how you perceive yourself. And what I would also add to that is this. We weaken ourselves when we're unwilling to forgive. Right? We weaken ourselves when we're unwilling to forgive. If we go back to our forgiveness bottle here. Now, if I had this bottle filled with that Icelandic super water I told you about, it's going to hydrate me. Maybe it's got some minerals. It's going to energize me, all those types of things. But if I fill it up to here and then I add in the toxic sludge, the pollution that is forgiveness, that is not forgiving, what's going to happen? As soon as I take a sip of that and I put that into my body, it makes me ill. It makes me weak. It takes my energy away. It reduces all those types of things and hurts me and harms me. So see, forgiving isn't weakness. We can perceive ourselves as anything. That's why I said it really is, perception is in the eye of the beholder. But when we don't forgive, that's when we weaken ourselves, because we're subjecting ourselves. If we have these two arms to do something with, but we can't use this arm because it's chained and it's dragging around the hurt and the pain of the past, right? We're drinking the sludge that we don't need to drink, which is always going to make us sick and ill. So it's not forgiving that weakens us. Great question. I had to relearn to forgive myself because my ex physically hurt me and my oldest daughter. My daughter has to have counseling because of him. Situations like that are some of the most important ones to learn to forgive. Because when there's actually a physical action, a physical ramification of someone else's behavior, and we may feel responsible for our part in it or whatever the case may be and how it's affected a third party, it can be really difficult to forgive ourselves. One of the things that I think is really important to consider with this is what happened is that. It's what happened. We can't go back and change what happened. And that's not to make small or dismiss some of the horrible and awful things that many of us on here have been through. But what it is to say is that we can always change what happened means, right? And and part of the reason we struggle to forgive is because we're reliving what happened as if it's happening in the present. So we keep recycling this experience over and over in our mind, but it's already happened. See, here and now in the moment, we have an opportunity to choose to have a new experience in life. Elle mentioned when we first logged in, I asked what was everybody's favorite part about Wednesday, and she said her dad has dementia with sad faces. And I suggested to her, I said, listen, my heart goes out to you with that. And when you're prompted about what's your favorite part of a day, find a favorite part, acknowledge it, put the color into the day still, because there's so many great things. Because if we start to color our days and we start to shade it with what happened in the past and our problems, our hurts and everything else, then again, it's just adding more sludge, it's adding more toxic. And this hard stuff in life is hard enough as it is, that we don't need to make it harder than it already is, right? If we meet ourselves with some grace, that's when we can transform. Heather, what if you are still with the person that hurt you and they have never really apologized, but you have worked things out and you still feel hurt from them time to time? I'm just as guilty for hurting them as well, and I have a hard time forgiving myself too. Good question. I would not make forgiveness contingent on apology. When we start to hold ourselves and we start to hold others hostage over apologies, we're going to always limit our abilities to forgive. Remember, forgiveness is really about freeing yourself. It's about letting things go. And we have to make those decisions in our life, right? Do we need to apologize? How much do we really need to apologize for? There's always things that we could be apologized for, so we can expect that. And here's what I would suggest to all of you is if you're in a relationship or you have a partner who refuses to apologize and doesn't apologize, you have to ask yourself, is that something that's really important to you in a relationship? And if it is, you want to be with somebody who's apologizing and they're not, you have to ask yourself, are you willing to settle for the standard in a relationship? Because ultimately, by us staying in a relationship with somebody who refuses to apologize, we, to some degree, empower them to continue the behavior, right? People engage in a behavior. There's the expression, it takes two to tango. And what I mean by that is we would love to think in our infinite wisdom, we would love to think that we're always consciously aware and we're always consciously present to everything, but it's not the case. Most of what we do is habitual, right? Easiest example is if I tell you all to focus on my hand and just really focus on my hand, look at the lines of my hand, the calluses of my hand, just notice that the more you focus on my hand, the less aware you become of how your left foot feels. But now your attention is divided between your hand and your left foot. You're not even aware of how it feels in the chair you're sitting in. But now you're noticing how the chair sits in. You're not even aware that I took my hand down or I put my hand back up because your attention's always divided. We have this finite amount of focus, this itsy bitsy little amount of it that we can actually put to conscious awareness of what's going on around us. And so what happens then is when we're in relations and we're relating to other people, we're not just necessarily being consciously, but we're operating off our programming, right? We've gotten so used to someone else's mannerisms, expressions, that we're going to engage, we're going to argue, we're going to combat, we're going to do all those things the same ways we always have done it, right? How many of you have ever been in a relationship that's longer than 6 months or a year long, and you find yourself coming home at the end of the day and you have the same conversation? How was your day? How was your day? What happened? And it almost sounds like it's just Groundhog's Day on repeat. And it's not because the two people love each other any more or less. It's because they're doing what they've learned how to do to exist in the relationships that they're in. So we have to really assess our values in that and say, okay, is apologizing, is it something that's a high value of mine in a relationship? Is this the kind of relationship I want to be in? And if it is, then we can do things to change our behavior that can effectively change the other person's behavior, that can create change in the relationship and create more apologizing. Or we can allow ourselves to start to explore possibilities beyond that relationship where we're in a relationship that actually meets our values and meets our needs at a high level. Is that helpful, Heather? Juanita, does this mean that when you forgive them, you agree with what they did to you? Great question. Not at all. Not at all. There are some people in my life who I would be the first to say that I feel like really kind of gave me two of these, and that was that, and not with a smile. Well, actually, it probably did have a smile on their face. And for a long time, I held a lot of anger towards those people. Now, it doesn't make what they did right or wrong. It's what they did. Do I have any desire to be friends with them? Not at all. Do I have any desire to have any relationship with them? Not at all. Do I have any desire to have any contact with them or even breathe the same air as them? Not at all. But what I had a desire to is I had the desire to release that bond, because what was happening was I didn't like this person. I thought they were a complete, asshole, cocksucker, all sorts of colorful language, which I won't get into too much here. But what was happening is, so here was this person that I couldn't stand because what they had done to me. But then I was focusing on them constantly. And because of that, I was adding this toxic sludge of them into my present time. So I'd be hanging out with friends. I'd be, doing things that I really want to do. And then here was this dark cloud called that person and the actions they did. And I was doing it because I felt like I needed to punish them because what they did was so wrong. And all I was doing was hurting myself. That person didn't give a shit about me. And it was obvious, because if they did give a shit about me, they would have never done what they did. But here I was making them the most significant figure in my life, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So I don't agree at all with what they did. I don't think they're a good person. I don't think they're kind people or any of those types of things like that at all. But I forgive them. I free myself from them. And then whatever happens to them may happen to them. I wish them well, because I really don't want to wish ill on a lot of people, because my core belief is that people are doing the best they can with what they have. And that oftentimes people make the decisions they make not necessarily because they're bad, but because they've made a series of bad choices or bad decisions. And it's just gotten to be a point where that's the only way they can meet their needs. But I don't want to have a damn thing to do with them. And I can happily live the rest of my life with never crossing paths or interacting with them again. Does that make sense? Good question. Hey, Kathy, good to see you on here. I don't know if I can forgive. Kathy, we should talk about that, Kathy. And I think that's a really honest thought, feeling, concern that many of us have, is we don't think we can. And I promise you that all of us can. We have the capacity to. But we have to find in our heart to love ourselves enough to release the burden that we've been carrying around. We'll talk about that, Kathy. What do you do if the person you've forgiven hurts you again? So, good question. Going back to, I think, what Heather mentioned about values, right? If we find ourselves forgiving people, but we're continuing to engage in some sort of relationship with them, romantic, family, whatever the case may work, we have to really ask ourselves, what is it about us that we believe we need to continue to subject ourselves to this? And we need to start doing our own inner work rather than pointing it out. Because what happens oftentimes is we'll start to, when we have repeat offenders in our life, we start to point at them and say, okay, it's them, it's them, it's them, it's them. But what about, again, these few fingers pointing back at us that say, it's us, it's us, it's us, that continually choose to engage with them, right? So this is where we have the real power with personal responsibility to look at that and say, okay, well, what is it about me that believes or thinks that I should subject myself to this? And what do I need to do to change that? All right. Jen, sounds like what I've done with the baby at work. Heck yeah, it is, Jen. High five. All right, Linda, forgiveness is hard. We have to pray, ask God to soften your heart, release the anger so you can receive God's blessings. Yeah, I mean that's definitely one approach. I think that there's no right or wrong way to forgive. If you're religious and you're going to lean to God to do it, then absolutely lean there. If you're not religious, if you look to other places, what's important with religion, I'm sorry, not religion. What's important with forgiveness is that you do something to forgive and that you take action to forgive, whether that action is asking for forgiveness from a higher power, a higher source, or it's running yourself through an exercise that you can do to actually forgive. But again, the most important thing is wherever your belief system is, spiritually, religiously, whatever that is just honor the voice inside of your heart that wants you to forgive, and then take action for it. Thanks for sharing that, Linda. I appreciate that. Okay, I think that is it for today. So, quick recap. I guess we already did the recap, right? So remember, the self-love course is 147 for this week. If you want to dive deeper into your self-love, and remember, that's normally 247, it's 147 this week. You can get it there. Remember, if you haven't done so already, to watch the TED Talk. And if you have watched it, please, if you found any value in this, if you found any value in the TED Talk, do me a huge favor, go over to the video, give it a thumbs up, and then most importantly, leave a comment in there. The more comments there are, the more engagement it is, the more it's going to be populated out to more people. It literally takes a minute, maybe two at the most, probably even less if you already have a YouTube account logged in, to get it in there and get that out, because I really believe so strongly in the message. And for me to reach out to get it in front of 1 million people, which is my goal before the end of this year, I need all of your help to do it. There is no way I can do it alone. I can only see so many at once, but with all of you and going out to our circles and stuff, it would just mean the world to me for you to help me make that happen. Yeah, let's see. Tomorrow we're going to be back here. Let me double check, but I think we're going to be back here the same time tomorrow. Just bear with me one moment. I'm sorry I wasn't prepared to update you with this. Does anybody have the schedule hand? We're at 1 o'clock tomorrow, correct? Or 1 o'clock, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Is that right? Four p.m. Pacific time. I think that's what we are at. Anyways, tomorrow, yes, 4 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to talk about the 3 absolute musts for falling in love and staying in love with yourself. So that's going to be 4 p.m. Pacific time. Then remember, Friday at noon Pacific time, we're going to have our weekly Q&A, which we can evolve from this, and we can also include whatever other questions you have. And Violet's already posed an awesome question to kick us off on Friday, so I think it's going to be a really good one. But otherwise, huge thanks to all of you for being here tonight. I appreciate so much your engagement, your comments, your shares. I saw quite a few of you tagging friends and family in this. I do hope you'll pass this on to them. A huge thanks to those of you who have liked and encouraged others as they've opened up and they've shared, and giving them some love. That's so important. If any of you have any other questions about this, feel free to message me. And I think all the coaching spots have been taken this week, but I'll open up some for next week. So if you want to dive a little bit deeper into that and explore coaching with me, it'd be wonderful to talk with you about that and the impact it can have on your life. If it's self-love and you want to work deeper on your self-love, I really encourage you to check out the self-love course. It's an awesome training. There's a few people on here who have done it. I know Violet has. So Violet, I keep pimping you out, Violet, to give feedback on it, but I think Violet doesn't mind. So Violet's a great person to ask. And with that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for your time, your energy, your contribution, your questions, your comments. I think that every week, and hopefully you all will experience this too, every week this community keeps growing. We keep getting more open. We keep sharing more. I think we keep getting more excited to grow, to learn. And it's because of all of you that this is happening. So it's just one side. I'm just one side of the equation. This is really a team effort here. And I'm so grateful for all of you who have been showing up, who have been inviting people to come, and who have been engaging and making this a safe space for other people to join us. So with that being said, whether it's morning, noon, or night, wherever you are, Carpe Diem, seize the day, seize the moment. Remember, you only are guaranteed this one moment, so make the absolute most of it. Perhaps this moment's a good time to begin to forgive. And I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Sending lots of love your way. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.